Hello everybody, welcome to St. Olaves mock number 4 video walkthrough. Starting off with the comprehension section, for booklet 4 we are reading about the accidental appliance, let's summarize the text before we answer the questions, and we start off by reading about how the microwave was basically accidentally made, and it was made by a scientist called Percy Spencer, who had a chocolate bar in his pocket where he was basically playing around with magnetrons, these waves, and it basically melted the chocolate bar, and he thought, why don't I do this with other foods? So he was sort of comparing how historically the microwave, when it was first invented, was very expensive, very big, weighed a lot, but now we had an accidental discovery that changes the way we have cooked for the rest of history. Question number 1. According to the passage, microwave ovens cook faster than conventional ovens because conventional ovens cook by means of conduction, where the heat passes from the outside of the food to the inside. Microwaves, on the other hand, work in the opposite way. It directly targets special waves, which has water molecules within the food and makes that heat up very fast. So how do they work differently? They're not turning the food into water molecules, and it's not heating all sides at once. In fact, they are exciting water molecules in the food, cooking the food from the inside, as opposed to the oven. Question number 2. Which of the following sentences would best fit if added to paragraph 4? Paragraph 4 is this one over here, and it's basically talking about, let me denote this here, basically talking about the differences between the historic microwave and the one we have now. So for these sets of solutions, we need to find directly one that correlates to comparing historic and now. The only one that does that, especially this one, would not work because it's not talking about microwaves. We see that although the first commercially available microwaves were too large and expensive to be popular, which is talking about historic microwaves, today 96% of the households have them. So it's talking about historic versus modern microwaves, which fits in perfectly with paragraph 4. So question number 3, what is the main purpose of this passage? So throughout the entire course of the passage, we're talking about the main theme. And the main theme of this is not just to compare how the microwave oven cooks to a conventional oven, because that takes up a very small part of the passage. What it's basically trying to cover here is discuss how it was first invented. The whole title is called The Accidental Appliance. Therefore, it's talking about how and focusing on how accidentally the microwave oven was invented. For question number 4, the word inadvertent most nearly belongs to which of the following word groups? So the word inadvertent we see over here, his inadvertent discovery changed the way many people cook today. He didn't intend to invent the microwave oven. So inadvertent sounds something accidental or without planning or something that just took place. And words that look like that are exactly words from group D: unplanned, accidental, unintentional. So always read around the word to see if you can gather context about what it means. So summarizing these next texts we have on the social contract, we have passage 1, which basically talks about the age of reason, how humanity was in transition, and this abstract agreement that is formulated by philosophers and trying to describe how different types of political power or power from the people. Passage 2 talks about how this sort of led to the start of the United States and how they severed their contract because previously the British had colonized them. They said that they were in breach of they were severing their social contract with England, because they thought that they had not complied with the social contract and that power comes from the governed rather than from the monarch that John Locke describes. Therefore, question 5, what can be inferred about the age of reason? So there are a few clear clues here. It says the old superstitions were proven wrong by science, and that it was around 1651 and around 110 years later, which means it took place between the 17th to the 18th century, because 17th century means the 1600s. Always be mindful of that. Therefore, we have two answers here. We have A and C, that it was throughout these centuries and it was possible because of new scientific breakthroughs. So from passage 1, what is the primary difference between the social contracts defined by Rousseau and Hobbes? So adapted by Hobbes, so let's start with Hobbes over here. Hobbes says that people gave power to a monarch or king because that person protected them. If you know anything about Hobbes, it is the Leviathan. I'm going to do them in contrasting colours. So we have Thomas Hobbes over here. Let's do this in orange. Thomas Hobbes is all about the Leviathan. People gave power to one person, a monarch or king that promised to protect them. Now let's compare Rousseau, and we'll do him in a hot pink. We can say Rousseau argued that power comes from the people. So one saying it's in a ruler and the other saying that it's in the people. We can see that exactly over here, that Hobbes argues that power lies in the government. And I'll change this to red. Argue power lies in the government, while Rousseau says that power is in the people, and you can compare the orange highlight to the pink. So now we're shifting on to passage 2. What is following? Which one isn't true about the Declaration of Independence? We know that it was written, and let me go back to my pink. It was written by Thomas Jefferson, and it touches on how the English were colonizers, and it also talks about how it was contracted. It does have reasoning based on the social contract, so we can see that from over here and over there. So the only one that doesn't make sense to conclude is that it was directly inspired by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And why can we say that this one isn't true? Because it was the social contract theory in general is developed by a lot of people. We have Hobbes, we have Rousseau, so we can't exactly say that it was directly inspired by Rousseau. So you have to be careful there. So question number 8 is, using the paragraph 2 of passage 1, the word abstract most nearly means. So we are talking about a contract. It is an abstract agreement. No one technically signs it. So if everyone agrees to it informally, it sort of means something that's informal, or everyone inherently agrees to it without physically having to do anything. If you think of abstract nouns, they're nouns that you can't feel or are physical. So if they're not physical, they're not practical, the best word to describe them is theoretical. We know that concrete is an antonym of abstract because concrete you can touch, you can feel. However, the contract doesn't really exist. Question number 9, which of the following best describes the relationship between the two passages? So comparing passage 1 and 2, we know that both of them are about the social contract. We can't say that one isn't. It is a specific event, but it's still about the social contract. And this one isn't arguing between the three conceptions. It's giving a separate event. We'll see that with solution B, the historical development of social contract theory is talked about through the thinkers such as Rousseau. However, the application of that same theory is the important thing over here. It's talking about how the Declaration of Independence, a historical event, is based off the application of that social contract theory. Therefore, the solution has to be B. So according to passage 1, the idea of the social contract is associated with what belief? So this one, they all do agree that they should have government. Even Rousseau and Hobbes, even though they differ on what that government looks like, that they should have a governor and governed people. They do agree, they don't all agree that monarchs should have the power to enforce. So we see everyone inherently agrees inadvertently, that word we saw in that other question. This cooperation is mutually beneficial. We see that if you agree to it, we have mutual protection. So we know that cooperation among individuals from that social contract theory is mutually beneficial for protection. So why is this example in question 11 given about King George III's and his failure to upload social contract theory? So the Americans believe that King George III violated this social contract theory because it's based off how they should have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But this English government has abused this on the colonists. Therefore, we can see that the one that makes sense, it's not just there to provide information on the monarchy or advocating for a new government. It's talking about the birth of American government. And that is justifying the colonist decision, so America's decision to sever ties with England, because they believe that the social contract theory was not being properly upheld by the English government. So which one can we definitely say for question 12? We know it was not universally accepted without any adaptation or change. We know Rousseau adapted it from Hobbes, so it's gone through a lot of iterations. And we know it had effect on America. It's not just talking about economics, so we have to go with B. So what would Thomas Hobbes likely think of the US Declaration of Independence? So we have his views in passage 1. What does Thomas Hobbes think? As I've highlighted here in the orange colour, Thomas Hobbes believes in the power of a monarch. So Thomas Hobbes would likely oppose, because it challenges monarchical power. They are challenging this King George. Over here, King George. And Thomas Hobbes was a believer of this Leviathan, this monarchical power. So from passage 2, what do the framers of the Declaration of Independence believe? We know that the British did not maintain their social contract. That's a lot of the reason why they wanted to sever ties with the British. It says explicitly here in the text that it expresses the belief that government power comes from the government, so the people. So from the direct quote of the text, we can say it comes from the consent of the governed. Question number 15. In both passages, the concept of the social contract is portrayed as what? We know it is not rigid and unchangeable because, again, as mentioned before, it went through many iterations between Hobbes and Rousseau and other thinkers. However, it is not an outdated belief because we still see it's a lot of Americans talk about its Declaration of Independence and their amendments, which comes from social contract theory. So we do see in C that it's a theoretical framework. Remember, it says it's abstract, which forms, it's all talking about government and the governed. So C would be the best. Question number 1, in the long jump competition, how many centimeters did Anna beat Clara? So Anna is over here, and let's try and figure out how much each mini box is. 1.1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks like Anna is going to be 1.2. Let's try and figure out what Clara is. She's 2 boxes past 0.5, therefore that means she is at 0.7. To find out the difference, we're going to do 1.2 minus 0.7, and that, should give you 0.5. However, this is going to be in meters, which means in centimeters, 0.5 centimeters is equal to 50 centimeters. Is shaped below. What is this angle going to be? So isosceles means they've already helped us out putting in these 2 markings. These 2 angles are the same. So let's call that X and X. To find out that, we're going to figure out 310. We know in a full circle there's a 360 degrees, which means if the whole thing is 360, then what's left to make 360? We're going to do 360 minus 310. We're left with 50 degrees. Now, how many in a triangle, how many degrees is equal to 180 degrees? That means if we have 180 in the whole triangle, to find out x is going to equal to 180 minus 50. And then because you get these 2 angles, you don't have to divide by 2 because they're the exact same. So you get 180 minus 50, which is 130, over 2 is going to be equal to 65 degrees. Now you find 65, which is x. How do we find A? It's the exact same thing, 360 degrees in the entire circle. So you have to do 360 minus 65, which when you subtract, you are going to find that it gives you 295. For the next question, let's draw out our prime tables. We have 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to take 2 out and we end up getting 1, 3, 2, 5, and 3. And what can we take out next? We can get out, because finding smallest positive number is equal to lowest common multiple. We can take 3 out and we're left with 1, 1, 2, 5, and 1. We're then going to take out 2, and then that gives us 1, 1, 1, and 5, and then 1. We can take out 5, and then we end up with all 1s. How do we find out our smallest positive number? We have to multiply everything together. We get 2 by 3 times 2 times 5, which is going to be 6 times 10, which gives us 60, which is going to be solution E. For question 4, average weight is equal to, so we have 4 boys. Average is equal to total over number is equal to average. So we have something. X is our total over 4 is equal to 55. That's our average. However, we now have an extra boy whose weight is 65, which means we're going to get X plus 65 over 4 is equal to, now we have to find our average. Oh, we're adding an extra boy, so this is going to be 5 boys, not 4. So let's find our own original total. If X is a total, and we know divide by 4 is going to be 55, we do 55 times 4, over here. That is going to equal to 20. Now we have our whole total. We have 220 plus 65 once we add this extra boy. And then that's going to be over 5, and then that's going to give us our average. So that ends up being 285 over 5. We can cross this out now. 5 goes into 28 5 times. 3 left over goes in 7 times. Our average is going to be 57. Just to save ourselves some time, I'm going to start with Wendy because she has the highest numbers I'm seeing here. Actually, in fact, with Fred, we have some £6. We have some £7 over here. So let's add this together. And I've just zoomed in a bit here so we can see what's going on. We're adding them all together. 5 and 5 and 5 is going to be 15. Add there. 1, 2, 3, 10, 16. So we're looking like we've got a little bit too much money for £13, which is what we're trying to find. Let's go on to, it looks like Tina, or let's say Wendy, has got sort of, they've got similar. Let's do both of them. So Wendy is going to be, so that's 0, and then we have, make that look like a 0. 5 and 5, that gives us 10. 1, 5, 7, 10, 11. That's a little bit too much. I can see some bigger numbers with Tina, so it has to be somewhere between Wendy and Fred. So we get 0, then we get 5, 10, 15, 20, and let's put that there. 5, 7, 11, 13. So we saved ourselves time by not having to do Mark and Tim. We know that Tina will get £13 total. Next up, we have output number is equal to 36. We're going to subtract 1 if we're going backwards, which is equal to 35. Just to make sure you can see, let's scroll up. And then if we multiply by 5, we're going to divide by 5, which gives us 7. And then that should be solution E. For question 7, we have a block. We have to cut it up so all of it is used. So let's try and find the volume first. So for volume, we have 20 times 15 is equal to 300. The total, I'll write that down here, total volume is equal to 300 times 12. So 3 times 12 is 36. Add 2 zeros. That is our total volume. Let's add our units. We actually don't have units. So we're going to do units cubed because it's volume. Now we have identical blocks. Let's try and find the blocks are going to be equal to 6 times 5, which is 30. 30 times 2 is 60 units cubed. To find out how many blocks I can fit in, we have to do 3,600 divided by 60. Because if we have to fit one of these cubes and there's 60, we need to find out how many cubes they're going to be. We're going to cross it out. That goes in 6 times. We have the extra 0. It's going to go in 60 times. We have some sweets in a bag, and I'm just going to note down we have how many sweets in total, because with probability, totals are really important. We have 5 plus 7 plus 8, and that means our total is going to be 20. Nice easy number because 5 plus 7 is 12. 12 plus 8 is 20. We can get yellow or a blue sweet bag. So we have to find the probability of yellow. We denote this like that. Probability of yellow is equal to, say y is yellow. Yellow is equal to 5 over 20. And because it's or, which is a special word, we have or is going to be plus probability because you can get, it doesn't matter which one, yellow or blue. If it was and, this is a very different question. You would have to multiply. But we're okay. It says or. We're going to have to add the probability of a blue sweet, which is, that is equal to 7 over 20. We're going to go ahead and add them together. And this one's easy, same denominator. 5 plus 7 is just going to be 12 over 20. Which ends up, we can simplify this. 4 goes into both numbers. 4 goes into 12 3 times. And then 4 goes into 20 5 times, which means we are left with 3 over 5, which gives us our answer E. Question number 9, we are rearranging formulas, and weight is equal to this lengthy formula over here, and we have to work out the radius. So we're trying to figure out this using what we already know, which is the thigh bone of length. And don't be afraid to just mark them down. This is 50 centimeters. It weighs 3,600 and it has a density of 8. And we see that we have radius twice. So hopefully get a nice square number. We're going to do weight divided by length times density. Seems to be r squared. That's our radius squared. So that's going to be 3,600. And our length times density is going to be 50 times 8, which is equal to 400. Which is equal to r squared, and then we also can cancel out the zeros. 4 goes into 36 9 times r squared. We're going to square root both sides to give us 3 is equal to r. That gives us B as the answer. So if the concert hall sold 60% of its tickets and 28 remain unsold, how many remain unsold? We're going to do that. We know that that's 100% minus 60% equal to 40%. How many are unsold? We know 28 tickets is equal to 40%. How many, what are we trying to find here? How many people can the concert hall hold in total? 28 is equal to 40. We need to find 10% first, and we divide both sides by 4, which means 28 divided by 4 is equal to 7, and that's 10%. Now we know that if we have 10%, we can find 100% pretty easily. We are just going to multiply both sides by 10, which means we get 100% is equal to 70 people in total. That gives us answer E. Question 11, we're given some important information here about some students in year 8. The pie chart shows the results of the survey. If 30 pupils chose red, this means this is 30 pupils. We know this angle very well. This is going to be 1/4 or 90 degrees. So 30 is 1/4. How many chose green or blue? So or means we have to encapsulate both of these, and we can find out if 1/4 is equal to 30 pupils. That means total is equal to 4/4. We have to multiply both sides by 4 is equal to 120. This means our whole total is 120. We can see that blue or green take up 50% or half. Therefore, half is equal to 60. Therefore, our answer is going to be C. For question 12, she has 42 sweets in total. 1/3 is for herself. How many does Lucy keep? Let's keep track of these names. 1/3 for herself means 42 divided by 3 is equal to 14. If you need that calculation, that goes into 4 one time, left over with 4, that's 14. So she keeps 14 for herself, and then the rest equally between two friends, Maya and Lucy. We don't care how many sweets she is. Oh, yes, we do actually. We need to find out how much is being shared. So if she has 14, Kazia keeps 14. We need to do 14, 2 minus 14 to find out equal to 28, which means that she's sharing this equally between Maya and Lucy. So let's write that down over here in a different color, how much they keep. She keeps 14. And if that's 2/3 as well, then that means we're going to split this divided by 2. They will also get 14 and 14. Let's do that in a different color, 14 and 14. But then Lucy gives half of some of her sweets away. Well, not half, but she has 14 and she's giving away. And let's keep this in red because we're doing the totals in red. She gives 2 sweets, 2/7 away. So how many does she keep? She keeps 5/7 of her sweets because 7 in total. She gives away 2. That leaves us with 5/7. So we get 7 goes into 14 2 times. 5 times 2 is equal to 10. She keeps 10 sweets. For question 13, let's try and find out how many ewes have twin lambs. Let's start off by finding the difference between 468 lambs minus 364 ewes, because we need to know, we definitely have more lambs than ewes. We need to find out the difference of how many do we have to make up for. Then we get 104 ewes. So if 104, let's specify a unit. If 104 ewes, so the mother female sheep has twins, then that would be how many lambs? That would be 208 lambs. So we've already made 208 lambs, but let's specify our answer. We could say 104 straight away, but let's just make sure we've covered all bases. We have 104 ewes. So how many do, if we have 104, that means we need to subtract that from the principal amount. So this is our principal amount, that's our principal amount. How much do we get left with? We are doing 260. So if we have 260 singles and 208 that are twins, let's just clarify that this all adds to be 468 lambs. We have 208 plus 260. What does that end up giving us? We have 468 lambs in total, which is what we were trying to make. Therefore, 104 has twins. 104 ewes have twins. For question 14, we're going to draw this out so we have a visual representation. This is the full height, which is going to be, just one, it's a whole. And then when we drop that ball, it's going to fall to about 75%. Let's make a little red ball just so we can understand that that is a ball. It's going to drop to about 75%. What is 75% as a fraction? It's going to be 3/4. Then the next time we bounce that ball is going to be over here, around 3/4 of that previous height. So we get another 3/4. So what does that mean? That means this height is going to be 3/4 times 3/4. And we see that each time we add it, we drop the ball again, it's going to be 75% of its previous height. Next time we do it, it's going to be another 3/4. So each time we are adding 3/4. Therefore, let's try and do this systematically. We do drop 1 is going to equal to 3/4. 3/4 of the original height. Let's do drop 2, and I'm going to do these in a different color. Let's do this in green. Drop 2 will be 3/4 times 3/4, which is going to be 9/16. Now let's do, we still see that that's over 50%. 9/16 is over 8/16, which means that we're still not at 25%. Let's do 3 is equal to 9/16 times by 4, which is gonna, times by 3/4, which is gonna be 27/64. That's still under 50%, but we're not quite at 1/4 because 1/4 of 64 is 16. So I'm just going to go over here so we have more space. Let's do drop 4, which is going to be 27/64. Multiply that by 3/4, and we get 81/256. Then we end up, it's 81/256. What is 1/4 of 256? We have 1/4 of 256 is going to be around 60. We'll divide that by 4. Then it's going to be around 64. We know that because we had to multiply. So this clue gives us, this number at the bottom gives us a clue of what 1/4 is going to be, since when you multiply it by 4 you get the entire number. So 81 is still over 64. Let's try and multiply it one more time. This is going to be a drop number 5. We have to do 81/256 multiplied by 3/4, and that is going to give us, over here, it is going to give us 243 over 1024. Now let's check this. Do we end up, 1/4 of 1024 is 256. Is 243 less than 25% of the original height? Yes, it is. So how many times did we have to drop it? We had to drop it, and let's change this color over here, 5 times. So the solution is D. So for the purpose of this question, we're going to draw a table. And we know that at hour 1, and I'm going to zoom in over here just so we can have some space to write. We can say there's 2 clocks. Clock A, this is going to be A, and that's going to be B. Then that means clock A, every hour it gains 5 minutes. So at first it's going to start off with 3 o'clock. Then it will have the hour and then gain 5 minutes, so it'll be 4:05. In the same way, clock B is over here. Every hour it gains 20 minutes. So if it starts at 3 o'clock, that means at hour 1 it will look like an hour and 20 minutes later, so 4:20. So now that we have this, we have to make our table, which means we can do hour here, and then we get clock A, we get clock B, and we can draw this, and we basically have to count how many hours. So let's do the first 5 over here. If it starts off at 3, the next hour is going to be 4:05. And I'm just going to take a minute. I'll do the first one and then I'll put both of them in for 20 because it's an hour and 10 minutes. And I'll add another one. The next one's going to be 5:10 because you have to add an hour and 10 minutes. And that one's going to be 5:40, adding an hour and 10 minutes. So far I have completed up to hour 6, and you can take a look at that, and then we still haven't looked like we've moved an hour from 3 o'clock. We're trying to get to 4 o'clock. So let's continue going. And now that we're coming to 10, we're going to do 11, which is going to be 2:55, and then we have 5:40. Add another one, we get to 12, it looks like, 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So it seems that after 12 hours, clock A looks like it's finally gone from 3 to 4. So now that we've done that, we know that it takes 12 hours. We can draw a new table, and let's do that over here where we have hour, and this is going to be clock A and B. Now that we know, it makes our job much easier. We need to see how many times do we have to go 12 hours to get the same time. If we are at 0, that means where both clocks are showing 3 o'clock. At 12 hours, we know it shows 4 and then 7, which means that there's a 4-hour difference each time between each clock. So at 24 hours, we're going to go 5, and then that will be 11. At 36, it will, and remember these are all o'clock. Just for the purpose, I'm not writing them down, but 36, we add an hour, we get 6 o'clock. We're not quite there yet, but we add 4 hours, that will be 3 p.m. And then add 48 hours, we add 7, add 1 to get 7. Then we add 4 to get 7 o'clock, which means it takes 48 hours to show the same time. So D. We're starting off with the verbal reasoning section. Question number 1, we have to make 3-letter word meaning a grassy piece of land, and if you know the word li, that means a big field or an open grassy space. Therefore the solution would be B. Just by elimination, we know that none of these can work because era doesn't mean grassy land, neither does rec, like recording or recommendation, or arc. So it looks to me we've got quite a lot of frequent ones here. We've got H quite a few times, you've got R quite a few times, you've also got S, and then N is only going to be in one. I'm not going to count that one because H seems to be in almost every single one. We also have, let's just work with these. H we see 1, 2, 3 times. R we see 1, 2, 3 times as well, and then S we see 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And then everything else, we know that we only see B 2 times, so we know that this consonant S is going to be the solution. So modal verbs for question 3, what is a modal verb? It's verbs that show ability or possibility. So words like that will be may or will. So may, that's to do with potential or future use, and then will is again ability or able or the potential to do it. Therefore, it would be solution E, may or will. You just know by elimination that these words cannot, tonight is not a verb, neither is this, so it has to be E. The one that makes the most sense, since is to do with the past, because since tomorrow wouldn't make sense. You'd say from tomorrow, that's for the future. So you can cross out these, you can just say them out or whisper if you're doing the exam to yourself, see which one sounds the best. But when you do this, since 2 days does not sound as natural as I've been waiting for your call since yesterday. This idiom you hear quite a bit talking about a person and say they've met their relations, they said, oh, he's a chip off the old block. It's sort of saying the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So this one is the most fitting. Imagine you have a block, which is the father, and then if he's just like his father, he's a little chip off the end, and so the son is just like his father. For these words, they are antonyms. Small, if you have a small group of people in a crowd, those are antonyms. Old and new, very much antonyms. Open, secret, only, choice. The only one's adequately and enough. If a cup is filled adequately with water, then there is enough water, so they are synonyms. So these are the odd one out. So for the word over here for question 7, we have, I'll write this down, ostrich. And this ends with, clearly, with the letter H. And this makes sense. Let's put it back in. The ostrich, anxious to join in the fun again. We're not really sure where the sentence is going, but it has a long neck. And he's in a boundary, which means some sort of bird. So that one makes the most sense. For question 8, we need to put in a 3-letter word. And we have... the Prime Minister is a something target of comedians. This, to me, I'm just like subliminally, I get a mental image of favorite. If I type out that word, you can see that here. Then we can see our is what's missing from that word. We get solution D. So where is this hidden 4-letter word at the beginning of the end of one word and the beginning of the next? So just looking through, I can see that this word seems to be epic. So which is the pair? It's the and pictures. Let's try and find the code for question number 10. I see what's in common over here. We have 6 in that third position. And we also have 6 at the beginning. The only word I seem to see like that is R. We know 6 is equal to R. We have in the third position here in corn and the first position here in rake. So R and 6 they mean the same thing. So we know we have to start with R. We can cross out with C, D, and A. Next, find the next vowel. We know that this one has to be, we have 2 words with O and O. So if this vowel is going to be 4, we have O and O. Therefore, we know 4 is going to be O. And if this vowel is 7, it's not going to be O, which means we can cross out B and we can get E as our answer. With these family questions, you always need to draw a diagram. Let's do that over here. So most important information, Grace is husband and wife with Jose. So we can do G and E, G and J are together. We can do a plus sign because they're married. And then from there, we know that Jose has a sibling and these came from the parents. We don't care who they are. We're just going to put parents. Jose has a sibling. Let's call them that. We don't know what gender, what their name is. But this sibling has, we know that Jose is Noah's uncle. This sibling had a child called Noah. And he's Noah's uncle. And Sarah is also Jose's niece. So we can assume that Sarah and Noah are brother and sister. So that means Grace, who is the wife of Jose, has to also be Sarah's aunt. So we get C. For question 12, let's write out what these boys did. So Noah and William, the boys, did 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's highlight 1, 2, 3, and 4. They did those 4 things. Lauren did half, which means she did half of 4, which is 2. And then Brianna did 5 more things than Lauren did, which is going to be 2 plus 5. And then that's going to be equal to 7 activities. So how many things did Brianna do? She did the most, so she got 7 compared to 2 and 4. For question 13, I can see that in tongues, we have a N, which is, there is no N in the word grotesque. So the word would be D. In this pair of words, we have to find a 4-letter word that makes it hidden, which means we get the word meal when we follow along. If the word is meal, that means, there we go. the second letter is going to be E. For question 15, we have something to do with families and the family business. So I'm going to assume that this becomes cousin. And then what does that mean? It means the middle letter is going to be I. Question number 1 of the verbal reasoning section. We have all these shapes. We're trying to find the odd one out. All these shapes are lining up completely. This long edge is meeting the long edge and the short edges are meeting the short edges. All of them apart from question B. Solution B, I mean. For question 2, I noticed that all of the shapes have 2 black on the inside. Here, black, black, white, black, black, white, black, black, and white. So 1 white. So we can cross out a few already. We can cross out A, we can cross out B, we can cross out D as well. And let's just compare the shapes. We have triangle, square, circle, triangle, square, circle, triangle, square, circle. The only one that has triangle, square, circle out of all of these is going to be E. For question 3, we have black shading here, which is going to go to white shading there. If we have black shading here, we need a white shape on the outside. We can cross out B, C, and that's it. It also seems that if we have 3 shapes here, we're going to subtract 2 to get 1 side. If we have 4 sides here, we're going to subtract 2 to get 2 sides. Which one looks like that? We know it can't be hatched at all because it doesn't go hatched, so it has to be D. Let's pay attention to the direction. We're going this way, that way, and this way. So we're flipping each time. We need something that's going top, left to bottom, right. So we're going to cross out B and D. Let's pay attention to what's happening to this arrow. It's going from in a clockwise direction. From here, it's going to flip over to be there. Here, every time it's moving clockwise. So if it's moving clockwise, it's going to be somewhere here. Therefore, the answer has to be A. Question number 5, I can see that this black shape is always on top. Imagine they're discs, that disc is always on top. It's on top here, it's on top here, it's on top here. However, C is the only one where the disc is underneath that black disc. We can see for question 6, the orientation of these shapes never change. Maybe the shading, but never where they are. If there's a diamond on the top, it will always be a diamond on the top. Same with the square. We can see that the square is always staying over here. Let me just highlight that. Square, square, square. So if we have the circle, this ellipses on the top, this elliptical shape, then we will have it on the top as well, which means we can cross out B and D. And then if we focus on where this black shape is going, this black, if it's in the bottom, will flip to the front, or flip to the top. This black, if it's on the right, it will flip to the left. So it's doing the opposite. Therefore, if it's on the top, it will go to the bottom, black shading, and the only one that has black shading on the bottom is C. For question 7, let's pay attention to this shading. It's definitely going to go this way, and this long edge, we're going to have a long edge. It's going to go up like this. Long edge to long edge when we're doing reflections. The only one that looks like that, let's say we cross out A, D, and E, we're stuck with B and C. But let's pay attention to the hatching. If it's going to meet it here, it's going to go back up for the mirror image. So it's going to be C. For question 8, we can cross out a Y because once this collapses over here to become the bottom, this star, this heart point needs to be facing this heart, like facing the circle like that, and so not pointing to this, pointing to the star. So we need to cross that one out because they would be next to each other, not pointing at each other. We can also cross out E because this heart can't move anywhere to point at the star like it is over here. We can cross out E. Same thing with B. This heart point won't be pointing the star if you collapse this side and join the circle over here. So the only one that looks like the star is confidently pointing at, the heart is confidently pointing at the star, is D. And if you imagine that we bend these in, the circle is going to come to face over here. That's going to form the bottom of the shape. And if we look at it from this direction, we get circle, star next to it, and then heart on the bottom. So it's going to be D. What is common in the shapes in number 9? So R and R is common over here. And what does this seem to correspond to? What's the same is I see black and white shading in both, and we also have black and white shading over here. Therefore, we know R has to be in the middle. We can cross out A, we can cross out D. After that, we have this W that is the same. I'm going to change that color. We have W, and that seems to correspond to this in thirds shading. So it kind of looks like it's split into thirds. But instead we have this cross fractioning of the shape, and the one that looks most similar to is X. Therefore we will have X and R, so we can cross out C. Lastly, the component we have is this arrow going down, and that seems to correspond, let's do a different color, so M and M is this arrow going down. The arrow is going up here, therefore we have to have L, so the answer is going to be XRL, which is B. For question 10, I'm going to focus on the triangle over here, and I can see that this triangle is at this 90-degree point. It is moving anti-clockwise one position every single time. You see the triangle is over here, therefore in the next position the triangle is going to be somewhere over here, which means we can cross out A, C, and D. Let's focus on this banner as well. It's going to go 90 degrees here, 90 degrees backwards, another 90 degrees. So in the next one, the flag banner type shape is going to end up somewhere over here. The only one that looks like that is E. Let's find out what's in common with question 11. We have P and P in common here. And what seems to be in common is that we have, let's do this, that we have this circle which has white on the outside, black on the inside. However, with this we have black on the outside, white on the inside. So it seems that Q is what we're looking for with the middle letter. That means we can cross out P, P, and all the rest are Q in the middle. It also seems to be the case that if I change this color, we have S, and these diamonds are going from top left to bottom right, top left to bottom right. However, we see that these are going from bottom left to top right. It's going in this orientation. Therefore, we have to have T as in our answer. We can cross out D. In terms of this H in common, I can see that they both have this little line on the left hand side of the pentagon. You can see it here. Imagine this is pointing upwards. We see one on the left hand side. However, if it looks like anything else, we've got one on the left hand side, but we've also got something else. We've got something when we put them together that kind of looks like a long dash. So that is the only similar one that we have to J. We know that it can't be H because it doesn't have this dash on the left hand side. Therefore, it would be J, Q, T. So I'm going to look at these going downwards, and I notice that this triangle is going to do a 90 degrees clockwise rotation and become wavy. In the same sense, this boat is going to do a 90 degrees clockwise rotation and go somewhere here, which means we can cross out A, D, and we can keep E. However, we know it's going to go wavy, so that we can cross out B and E as well, which leaves us with C. Let's try and identify the pattern in 13. We have 2 white, then we have 3, then we have 3. So it seems like we've got a repeating pattern of 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. So we're going to assume that we have 4 next. We're going to cross out C and D, which means the only one that we have left with 4 white is going to be B. Next up, we have a 90 degree rotation each time, or this moves up a position, it's going to go clockwise here to there. If it's going to be here, then it's going to be moving to this position next, so we can cross out B and C. Now let's see what's happening with this line over here. Instead of going there, it skips and goes to that corner. Then it goes in the middle, it skips and goes to this corner. Then it goes to the middle, it's going to go to the middle over here. Oh, actually, I don't know why I blocked out C, but we can just cross out B from that diamond shape. And then we know that this is going to skip this corner and then go to the middle, which looks like C. So for question 15, we can definitely cross out these are vertical. So we need something that's horizontal. And this is almost completing a rotation. As it rotates again, it's going to be filling up this part, and then it will rotate again where this whole black bit will be covered up on the top. Question number 16. I'm just going to focus on these cross boxes here. We have 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we need 5, which means you can cross out this, this, and that until we just get A.